You are listening to audiobooks at Feel Good Cultivation audio channel. Up next is Demon Emperor Episode Ba. Chapter Kong. The once desolate Changmen detached palace was now heavily surrounded. 3 layers deep both inside and out. Numerous eunuchs and palace maids were taken away, isolated, and interrogated, inside and outside the courtyards. Countless palace lanterns were hung. A large assembly of guards and eunuchs held torches, illuminating both the interior and exterior brilliantly. In the room, Nguyen Ho was still carefully examining the divine statue. The statue wore golden scale mail armor and was draped in an exceedingly concealing cloak. A bloodstain on its forehead had cracked open, revealing a third eye. If one merely looked at its eyes, one might mistake it for Erlang Shen of Guangku, albeit with a somewhat unsightly appearance. But upon closer inspection, that eye was not vertical, but horizontal. Moreover, it was 3 times larger than a normal eye. The malevolent, blood-red eye occupied nearly half of its forehead. Combined with its distinctly non-human, horse-like face, it appeared even more terrifying. Nguyen Ho thought to himself, "This means they want a fight to the death with me." That eunuch hadn't been wrong. Killing this ghost master of the hell path would indeed cause great trouble. Nguyen Ho put away the divine statue and ordered someone to wrap up the bronze mirror. Then, he looked out at the dense crowd of figures outside. This palace needs a thorough cleaning. Nguyen Ho had previously focused all his attention on the imperial guards and had also replaced some of the personnel around him in the palace. But now it seemed that was still far from enough. Although it was still unclear what the enemy intended, it was evident this was definitely not aimed at a mere concubine. No matter how beautiful a concubine was, she wouldn't be worth using such schemes and pawns. Clearly, it was aimed at the life of him, the demon emperor. Very quickly, the imperial physician arrived. The imperial physician checked her pulse and examined her by the bedside for a while, then performed acupuncture. 2 palace maids helped imperial concubine Su up. She vomited a mouthful of blood into a bronze basin and then fully regained consciousness. Imperial concubine Su weakly opened her eyes, her face pale as she looked around, and noticed the numerous figures beyond the silk curtain. The palace maid beside her gently reminded her, her voice tinged with joy, "Your Highness, His Majesty is outside." Nguyen Ho lifted the curtain and entered, looking at the concubine who was wearing a thin garment. "Are you all right?" Imperial concubine Su looked out, her gaze instantly focusing on Nguyen Ho. She immediately tried to get up, but Nguyen Ho had already sat down beside her, so she prostrated herself on the bed to pay her respects, her voice joyful. "Your Majesty, you have finally come to visit me." Imperial concubine Su was not old, only about 17 or 18. Nguyen Ho had just made some inquiries. It seemed she had been made an imperial concubine without any particular background, solely because of her beauty. Nguyen Ho covered her with a blanket. Imperial concubine Su coughed. "Nguyen Ho, I heard that after not seeing us for a few days, you fell seriously ill?" If he hadn't asked, it might have been fine. But as soon as he did, her tears began to fall. Nguyen Ho appeared to be comforting her, but in reality, he was subtly inquiring about her recent situation. For example, about the eunuch who had always served her, and where that bronze mirror came from. But she knew nothing about it at all. At this moment, a eunuch from outside brought in freshly brewed medicine. Nguyen Ho casually took it, sniffed it, and then casually fed it to her. Nguyen Ho had already inspected the medicine and knew it contained poison. "Don't carelessly drink medicine from others. I have already reassigned your original attendants and assigned 2 new ones. From now on, listen to them. If anything happens, let them report it to me. Once you've recovered a bit, you can return." Imperial concubine Su. "Yes." Nguyen Ho put down the jade medicine bowl and mentioned 2 things. "Regarding your transfer to the Changmen detached palace, I was unaware of it. As for you being poisoned, don't overthink it. This matter is unrelated to Consort Li. Someone wanted to harm me through you. You suffered in my stead." After Nguyen Ho had said what needed to be said, he finally stood up. "Rest well. In 2 days, I will visit you again." Imperial concubine Su tried to get up again, but Nguyen Ho gestured for her to stay down. She could only say, "Respectfully seeing your majesty off. Your majesty must also be careful." Nguyen Ho walked out. The eunuch who had previously served imperial concubine Su, despite having been stabbed through the abdomen, was somehow still alive, lying on a mat in the corner of the wall. Muttering, Nguyen Ho walked over and looked at him, called his name, and said, "Speak. Who else is involved? What is your plan?" Nguyen Ho's voice carried a hint of soul-summoning power. And moreover, by calling his name directly, it further shook the eunuch's mind. Seeing this, the eunuch was about to succumb to Nguyen Ho's soul-summoning voice. Just then, this eunuch suddenly sprang up, like a jiangshi breaking free from its bonds, and lunged towards Nguyen Ho. So grievously injured, it was unknown where he found such strength. Audacious, courting death. The nearby guards immediately moved forward, but Nguyen Ho's speed was even faster. A flash of sword light, and a single strike hit the vital point on the eunuch's neck. Fresh blood spurted 3 feet high. The hot blood splattered in midair, leaving a streak on the pillar and eaves. Nguyen Ho snorted coldly, flicking the bloodstain from his sword. Although Nguyen Ho had executed this move in the room before, no one had seen it clearly, obscured as it was by the layers of silk curtains. But now, in the courtyard, Nguyen Ho wielded his sword like a saber, employing the 100 battles saber technique with immense skill to draw his sword and kill, steady, precise, and fierce, like a seasoned veteran of the battlefield. Instantly, the surrounding guards stared wide-eyed in astonishment. This saber technique was far more formidable than theirs. These imperial guards who usually only trained and had never experienced actual warfare. How could they not be terrified? However, as Nguyen Ho increasingly revealed more unusual traits, it paradoxically didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. Or rather, no one dared to suspect. Instead, they increasingly felt the emperor's aura was majestic and unfathomable, and their reverence and fear for him grew. Indeed, it was good to possess the status of the emperor, even if there were a host of problems. No ordinary person would dare say there was an issue. Nguyen Ho frowned, turned, and scanned the detained palace maids and eunuchs. Even though it was late at night, the surrounding palace lanterns and torches clearly illuminated everyone's faces. Nguyen Ho looked at them one by one. Everyone was trembling, some incessantly kowtowing and begging for mercy. At this moment, Nguyen Ho activated the soul-scrying physiognomy art. Then he pointed to several people among them and said to the middle-aged eunuch and the guards behind him, quote, "This one, and this one, take them down for interrogation. If there's nothing wrong with the others, release them all." After saying this, Nguyen Ho returned to the Hall of Purple Divinity. Meanwhile, in another place, Consort Li's residence was brightly lit with lamps and torches. The corridors outside all illuminated. However, even by midnight, no one had come from outside from beginning to end. This made Consort Li a little anxious. Where is His Majesty? Why hasn't he arrived yet? Just then, someone from the palace hurriedly ran over, bringing a piece of news. His Majesty has gone to the Chongmen detached palace. It said that imperial concubine Su was poisoned and subjected to evil arts, with the intent to harm His Majesty through her. But His Majesty discovered it. After this string of words, Consort Li's face turned deathly pale. It wasn't that she was involved in this matter, but she was the one who had sent imperial concubine Su to the Chongmen detached palace. Moreover, she had never mentioned this to the emperor, although she was in charge of managing the imperial harem, and this fell within her authority and responsibility. The reason being that imperial concubine Su had caused the emperor to fall into the water, which seemed quite sufficient, but how the emperor would think upon learning of this was difficult to predict. How crucial the emperor's moods were could be clearly understood just by looking at the eunuch's earlier attitude. Chapter Mo the Netherworld. A minor demon passed through the incense smoke of the spirit realm, hurrying into a dark and terrifying grand hall. Kneeling on the ground, it began to speak in the demonic tongue, which the living fundamentally could not comprehend, sounding like someone speaking with a mouthful of mud. Roughly translated, its meaning was, the mirror mechanism isn't complete yet, but that son of heaven, Nguyen Ho, has already realized and immediately led people to disrupt our ritual. From within the darkness, the divine statue on the altar swayed twice. An equally indiscernible voice transmitted downwards, tinged with impatience amidst the gloomy terror. How did that Nguyen Ho know of our plans? Could it be that someone leaked the information? The mastermind behind the plan hadn't anticipated that Nguyen Ho would detect something amiss even before they had begun. Furthermore, when Nguyen Ho entered the Changmen courtyard, the moment he saw that eunuch, he knew there was a problem and charged straight into the ritual-breaking chamber. All of this indicated that Nguyen Ho was definitely no ordinary person. The minor demon kowtowed repeatedly, its mouth opening and closing so rapidly it seemed to create afterimages. Great King, that son of heaven, Nguyen Ho, is absolutely not human, he must be a demon. How could a human kill general so? Disrupt the Great King's plans? And how could he so casually execute Chief Lu? Or, he must possess yin-yang eyes, capable of seeing through us. On the altar, the three-eyed Lord Ma, upon learning this, spoke, "What is the origin of this demon? No, I've never heard of anyone who could possess the body of a son of heaven. Even one about to lose the mandate of heaven. I've only heard of ancient high officials reincarnating, born to seize the throne of the son of heaven. But I've never heard of this. It's absolutely impossible." First, a correct deduction was dismissed. The demon's mud-filled voice echoed once more, booming through the nether hall. Perhaps this Nguyen Ho was some great minister reincarnated from a past life. The calamity of falling into the lake not only failed to claim his life, but surviving it had instead awakened his past life wisdom. The minor demon below in the grand hall immediately widened its eyes, revealing a terrified expression, regardless of whether it was a demon capable of possessing the Son of Heaven, or a great minister who could reincarnate. Both were incredibly terrifying existences in the legends of gods and demons. To the minor demon, there was no difference between the two. The divine statue on the altar vibrated, emitting a sound, and the very air seemed to ripple in response. No matter what, he has personally severed ties with the ghost path of our underworld. We cannot spare him. If the mirror mechanism spell isn't usable, then let's see about Nguyen Wan over there. What's his situation? To cast a spell on the Son of Heaven, we can only rely on such methods. Zichen Hall. Early in the morning, Nguyen Ho summoned the Vice Minister of Works and asked him a question. Regarding the Celestial Maiden Palace, what is its current progress? Nguyen Ho had arranged for this matter as soon as he returned. But such a large mural, to move it while ensuring no damage, and also to build a temple for its worship, was not something that could be completed in 2 or 3 days. The Vice Minister of Works, transporting that spirit mural here isn't too troublesome. But to erect this Celestial Maiden Palace immediately is indeed not a simple matter. Nguyen Ho, I recall there's a Lu Tien Palace at the foot of the Imperial City. Isn't there? It's abandoned now. Renovate its interior, and it will be the Celestial Maiden Palace. The Vice Minister of Works, yes. Nguyen Ho wasn't originally in such a hurry to build the Celestial Maiden Palace. But recently he had increasingly realized that if the Imperial City and the capital were not guarded by deities, great chaos would indeed ensue. And Nguyen Ho had just pushed forward the arrangements for the Celestial Maiden Palace, not yet having had the chance to discuss the details with the palace attendant. At this moment, a eunuch approached Nguyen Ho's side and whispered something in his ear. Your Majesty, the Prime Minister's remains are missing. After hearing this, Nguyen Ho's expression remained unchanged. He continued discussing the Celestial Maiden Palace with the palace attendant until the latter took his leave. Only then did he summon the eunuch and inquire about the matter in detail. Are the Prime Minister's remains missing? Or were they stolen? As soon as Nguyen Ho spoke, he hit the crucial point. The eunuch. This servant doesn't know either. I only know that a strange sound was heard during the night, like a horse neighing. Afterwards, it was discovered that the Prime Minister's coffin lid was open, and the remains were gone. Someone said. Nguyen Ho. Said what? The eunuch. They said they vaguely saw the Prime Minister's silhouette walking out. Nguyen Ho. Immediately send people to investigate. Nguyen Ho naturally knew that nothing would be found. But he couldn't not investigate. The palace attendant and the eunuch departed. The hall became empty, with only the servants standing motionless outside. Like statues, Nguyen Ho paced among the palace pillars, recalling the words Miao Shang, the celestial maiden, had spoken to him before. Next, I fear the capital will be overrun by demons, and malevolent spirits will flock here. Events were indeed unfolding as she had said. These demons and monsters were brazenly causing trouble in the capital, seemingly without any restraint whatsoever. Quote, specialized matters must be handled by specialists. Although Nguyen Ho used his own peculiarities to uncover the enemy's plots and schemes, and had foiled some of their plans. However, whether it was the mirror and consort Chin in the harem, or the Prime Minister and his remains, what these ghost sorcerers ultimately wanted to do with those things, he still didn't quite understand. But there was one thing Nguyen Ho was certain of. Whether the former or the latter, all of it was aimed at him. Nguyen Ho once again took out the wormwood sachet that Miao Shang, the celestial maiden, had given him earlier. After using it once, he understood that she could use this fragrance as a medium to contact him. He prepared to use it again, to ask the celestial maiden what the current situation truly was. The sky gradually darkened. Nguyen Ho had the people in the hall withdraw to guard outside, remaining inside alone, preparing to use the wormwood sachet to perform the art of dream meeting the celestial maiden. But before that, he still had to wait for something to happen. Yesterday, he had personally slain a eunuch who was likely a follower of the ghost path. If nothing unexpected happened, the tiger would appear soon. A deep growl. Sure enough, as soon as the sky turned completely dark, the tiger emerged from his body, accompanied by a thunderous growl rumbling from its belly, unbearably famished, and darted off into the distance. Not long after, the tiger returned, having eaten its fill. It affectionately circled Nguyen Ho a few times, then spat out a refined orb of light, which entered Nguyen Ho's eyes. The trans-soul poison art. Instantly, countless images of classifying medicinal ingredients and concocting medicines appeared before Nguyen Ho's eyes. Indeed, the one who poisoned consort Su was this eunuch. Nguyen Ho wondered, why didn't they target him directly? He quickly figured it out. Perhaps it was because of his status that there was no way to approach Nguyen Ho. Only when consort Su was banished to the Chongmen courtyard could the eunuch seize the opportunity to get close. But now that he possessed this poison art, it would no longer be so easy for others to poison him. Opening his eyes, after fusing with this trans-soul, Nguyen Ho suddenly felt an unexpected sensation of fullness. It seemed that after swallowing this trans-soul, he somewhat lost his appetite. Nguyen Ho immediately calculated the number of these trans-souls. Excluding the soul-summoning trans-soul, he had now swallowed 7 trans-souls. Quote, could it be that the number of trans-souls that can be integrated into the body is also limited? Nguyen Ho had also heard the legends about the 3 Hun and 7 Po souls. Kak Ban Dang Nghe Trian Demon Emperor Tai Feel Good Cultivation Audio Channel Chapter High. The Tran Phach Autumn Tiger was retrieved, and everything was prepared. Nguyen Ho sat behind his desk, gazing at the flickering palace lanterns in the grand hall, then took out the mugwort sachet. The moment he took it out, a wave of fragrance swept Nguyen Ho's consciousness to the 9th cloud. Nguyen Ho's soul summoning magic was performed using sound as a medium. While this method of the celestial maiden Du Hong clearly used fragrance as a medium. This celestial maiden, I wonder if she has some connection to incense? Nguyen Ho's consciousness gradually grew hazy. It seemed as if plumes of green smoke were rising all around, gathering from all directions. Your Majesty. Amidst the smoke and mist, the celestial maiden arrived, riding the wind and clouds. During their first meeting, This Celestial maiden, who was once a deity of old, was incredibly enthusiastic yet full of probing. During their second meeting, after she began to pay special attention to him, she also showed several degrees more sincerity. Now was the third time. Nguyen Ho watched the Celestial maiden approach. She carefully appraised him, as if every time she met Nguyen Ho, he revealed a side that astonished her. Nguyen Ho got straight to the point, recounting what had happened earlier, regarding the mirror and concubine Tan in the palace, and the theft of the remains of Prime Minister and Imperial kinsman Nguyen Huan. Celestial maiden Ju Hong this time did not deliberately act mysterious. Nor did she conceal or equivocate. Quote, "Does your majesty know why I must use incense when performing this magic to invite you into a dream? Previously, this capital city should have been guarded by the Hell Dao. But after Nguyen Ho killed the Ghost Master, the original system was completely shattered. Nguyen Ho had long had his suspicions. Using an object as a medium? Celestial maiden Ju Hong nodded. And it also requires your majesty to actively invite me. Only then can I enter this dream. And for that demonic voodookurse to affect your majesty. It similarly requires an object as a medium. It cannot be cast out of thin air. Most arts of the voodoo path are like this. And ordinary curses and mediums have little effect on your majesty. To truly harm your majesty. For example, a concubine who spends her days and nights with you, and whose resentment towards your majesty transforms her into a vengeful ghost in a mirror. Nguyen Ho had heard of this strange art. Volume Sao of Strange Records documented the bizarre tale of a person's soul becoming attached to a mirror. Or, Nguyen Huan, who shares the same bloodline as your majesty. These are all superior mediums. Nguyen Ho understood, but there was still one thing he didn't comprehend. Quote, "It's just that if demons and ghosts in the capital of a nation can come and go so easily, and if the Son of Heaven can be so easily subjected to curses by others, wouldn't this world have long fallen into great chaos?" Celestial maiden Ju Hong looked at Nguyen Ho and nodded lightly. "Of course, it's not that easy. The Son of Heaven is usually protected by the ancestral temple and the state. But your majesty's ancestral temple has encountered some problems." Nguyen Ho roughly understood. After the Dai Tin dynasty lost its capital, the ancestral temple was vandalized by the rebel army, and the imperial tombs were all desecrated. That rebel had dug to the very roots. Seeking blessings from the ancestors was basically out of the question. Celestial maiden Ju Hong. But originally, there were alternative magics. The Hell Dao has formidable power in the netherworld, and protecting your majesty and the capital city would have been more than enough. Nguyen Ho understood. No wonder when I killed that ghost master. Each and every one of them reacted so strongly. But if given another chance, Nguyen Ho would still slay him again. Without slaying that ghost master, where would he have gotten such a useful physiognomy art? Nguyen Ho now understood the ins and outs. Celestial maiden Ju Hong also vanished along with the wisp of incense, saying before she left, "It's just that what voodooart that horse king of the gloomy underworld wants to cast? I do not know. I hope your majesty will take note and be careful. If there is any news, I will also inform your majesty." Nguyen Ho stepped down from the horse carriage, and everyone knelt on the ground. He looked up, towards the long flight of stairs ahead and the palace at the very end. The sign of the 6 days palace that had hung there was taken down, replaced by the sign of the Celestial maiden palace. In just 2 days and 1 night, the Ministry of Works had quickly carried out Nguyen Ho's decree. This divine palace at the foot of the imperial city, which originally enshrined the 6 days ghosts, had been cleaned out. Nguyen Ho came today to see if there were any remaining issues. Nguyen Ho entered the grand hall. Inside, the densely packed demonic statues that were originally displayed had all been removed. The murals had not yet been moved in, and the Celestial maiden statue crafted by the artisans was not yet complete, making it look very empty. Nguyen Ho walked and looked. Have the palace master and the invocation master begun the selection process? The palace chamberlain. It has begun. But in the end, it still requires your majesties and the deities confirmation. Nguyen Ho asked again. When removing those statues of the 6 days ghosts, did anything happen? The palace chamberlain. Nothing unusual has ever happened. These 6 days ghosts had their temple snatched away just like that. Losing their largest source of incense offerings. Yet there wasn't the slightest retaliatory reaction. Nguyen Ho, on the contrary, felt it was rather abnormal. Outside the palace, a servant walked by, burning mugwort to ward off evil. The light smoke curling. Quote, "Something's wrong?" Nguyen Ho faintly smelled the light smoke and turned his head to look. He keenly sensed that there was a problem with this smoke. Something else was definitely mixed in with the mugwort. His Tran-Fach Poisonart instinctively activated. Although the EUNUCH's Poisonart was not profound, the substance hidden in this smoke felt like it shared the same origin as the Poisonart he had learned. Nguyen Ho immediately looked towards the servant, slightly covering his mouth and nose as he ordered, "Seize that person. Use water to extinguish the smoke." However, as soon as he finished speaking, a strange gust of wind carried the burning mugwort into the divine palace. In an instant, the scenery outside, as perceived visually, darkened. It grew dimmer and dimmer, until it became pitch black, and nothing could be seen. Peeved. But inside the palace, candles suddenly lit up one by one, illuminating the surroundings. The previously empty grand hall was instantly filled with deities and demons throughout the hall. The 6 days ghosts that had been moved out of the hall had returned. Terrifying demonic deities, each one occupying the entire surrounding space. Some were nearly 10 feet tall, some exceedingly hideous. There were also those only a few inches tall, standing on the beams, eaves, or in the niches on either side, looking at Nguyen Ho with overflowing malice. If an ordinary person saw such a scene, they would probably be scared to death on the spot. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, along with various mad laughs. In an instant, all the surrounding statues came to life. The candlelight flickered, and the shadows cast on the ground danced chaotically like a swarm of demons. Nguyen Ho stood in the center, looking at this scene, sneering inwardly. Playing gods and ghosts. Nguyen Ho had experienced many things and had spoken with Celestial maiden Du Hong. He knew that the most crucial element for casting this Voodort was the medium. The worst kind of Voodort was one that used sound, smell, light, and darkness to influence the opponent. If encountered by someone with a steadfast will or someone who could see through the caster's methods, it would have no effect. It was naturally very effective against ordinary people, but it was useless against some extraordinary individuals. Nguyen Ho. Nguyen Ho. The 6 days ghosts called Nguyen Ho's name directly, one by one, like a soul summoning ART, wanting to intimidate Nguyen Ho, to overwhelm his will, to make him unable to resist, to make him docilely obedient. Quote, "Do you know your crime? Do you know your crime? Know your crime? Know your crime?" The sound echoed continuously in the grand hall, like the increasingly resounding toll of great bells and chimes. Nguyen Ho glanced to both sides and asked a question. "Is there anything more formidable? I hear the scenery of the gloomy underworld is beautiful. Why don't you bow down and prostrate yourselves? Become my mounts, and take me for a tour?" As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding 6 days ghosts all became enraged. Insolent, courting death, looking at the tense atmosphere, as if bows were drawn and swords unsheathed. Each of the 6 days ghosts looked like they wanted to eat him alive. But Nguyen Ho did not make a move. He knew the other party was also incapable of making a move. What appeared here at this moment were merely false illusions. The opponent could not harm him. And it was meaningless for him to attack a group of illusions. But since the opponent created such an illusion, there must be some purpose. Nguyen Ho, speak. What have you come here for? The 18-foot-tall leading statue spoke. If your majesty can realize your error and return to the right path, welcome the gods back to the palace, eternally worship the Hell Tao, and kowtow to the gods in repentance. It is still not too late. Otherwise, your majesty will likely fall into that La Fong ghost prison, suffering endless torment for eternity. This move by Nguyen Ho had completely cut off the incense offerings of the 6 days palace, and then he used another deity to replace them. It could be said that this struck at the opponent's vital point, and also made the opponent truly anxious. Nguyen Ho, wouldn't that be just perfect? I am right here. Why don't you become my mount and carry me for a tour of that gloomy realm? This time, it completely infuriated these 6 days ghosts. But at this moment, they could do nothing to Nguyen Ho and could only retreat. Ha ha ha. Courting death. Courting death. Seeking your own demise. Nguyen Ho, you have lost the mandate of heaven. The Dai Tin dynasty in your hands deserves to perish. Along with each curse, black wind continuously swirled around, and thick, choking smoke constantly poured out from the darkness. The 6 days ghosts, one by one, were swept up into the sky by the black wind and thick smoke, gradually disappearing above, leaving this palace. Your Majesty, Your Majesty? At this time, many people entered the hall, surrounding Nguyen Ho, only to see Nguyen Ho standing in the grand hall, looking up at the roof beams. And outside, the initially burning mugwort for warding off evil had been extinguished by water. And the illusion and abnormality targeting Nguyen Ho also stopped accordingly. The illusion just now was not intended to make a move on Nguyen Ho, but to negotiate with Nguyen Ho, or more accurately, an ultimatum, using gods and ghosts to threaten him, wanting him to bow his head and admit his faults, wanting him to worship them for generations, and to kowtow to the gods in repentance. But Nguyen Ho came to be an emperor, not to be a subservient underling. Compared to these 6 days ghosts, the nether gods of the underworld who were always trying to control him, Nguyen Ho was more willing to believe in the deity he himself supported, relied upon, and was bound to. Chapter Bathe Shangxi Festival, a banquet in the palace. Today, quite a few people had come, civil and military officials, along with their families, attended. Nguyen Ho, as the Son of Heaven, hosted the banquet, also bestowing fragrant herbs and imperial wine. It truly appeared to be a lively and harmonious scene among the sovereign and his officials. At the banquet, a man suddenly came forward to pay respects to Nguyen Ho. Nguyen Ho did not recognize this person and sat silently. But as soon as this man opened his mouth, he exclaimed, "Imperial brother." This man was, in fact, a brother of this body, judging by his tone. He was a blood relative. Nguyen Ho said nothing further. He merely listened as the man finished his salutations, followed protocol by bestowing a small reward, and then ordered musicians to play and dancers to perform. Although he wasn't afraid of being exposed or suspected, it was naturally best to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Subsequently, everyone became immersed in the dance and music. In the night, the man left the imperial city in a horse-drawn carriage, heading towards his residence along the main road. On the carriage, besides a coachman, there were 2 servants on the left and right below, following the carriage towards the end of the long street. The carriage moved very slowly, almost at a walking pace. But nobles and royals naturally couldn't walk, even if slow. They had to sit in a carriage. Suddenly, a very faint sound carried on the night wind. Others did not hear it, but the man inside the carriage, separated by a curtain, heard it and lifted the curtain. "Did you hear that? Someone is talking." The coachman and servants glanced to both sides. The main road was deserted. Where would anyone be talking? They couldn't help but look at each other in bewilderment. The carriage continued forward, and at this moment, the sound in the night wind became increasingly clear. The man not only heard someone talking but could also clearly discern that the person was calling his name. The man felt something was amiss and lifted the curtain again. Quote, "There's clearly someone talking, and they're calling my name. Can none of you hear it?" The people around him still said they heard no sound. The man felt a slight shiver. This was indeed somewhat abnormal. He looked around. Indeed, there was no one in sight. Yet a voice kept calling him. And it was getting closer. It sounds a bit like Imperial Uncle's voice? The Imperial Uncle the man spoke of was Prime Minister Nguyen Ho, who had died in the Great Fire earlier. As the sound grew nearer, the man finally couldn't help but respond. "Imperial Uncle? Do you have something you wish to tell your nephew? Is there some injustice you want to inform your nephew about?" The moment he responded, it seemed as if some barrier had been broken. A figure, previously unseen no matter how one looked, suddenly appeared in front of the carriage, blocking their path. The man was startled and pointed forward, exclaiming in terror, "Ahead! What is that thing ahead?" The coachman jumped down, and the servants on both sides rushed forward, looking all around. Then they turned back and said to the man, "There's nothing there?" At this moment, that figure had already passed by the servants, heading towards the man and the carriage. The moonlight shone upon that thing. Only then did the man realize it wasn't a person at all, but a monster with a tiger's head, while its body was human, dressed in purple official robes. Looking closer, he discovered that the human body was as black as ink, so black it didn't resemble normal human skin. This bizarre scene directly stunned the man. He hurriedly drew the curtain, hiding in the carriage. Trembling, that thing charged straight into the carriage, followed by a miserable scream, and then horrifying sounds of chewing and swallowing. The coachman and servants heard the commotion, quickly turned back, and lifted the curtain to look. The inside was splattered with blood, but the man was nowhere to be seen. Bones mixed with flesh and blood were scattered everywhere, but the flesh, blood, and internal organs were gone. A rumor began to spread in the capital city. Every night, a crimson tiger would appear on the streets, capable of speaking human language. If it called your name and you answered, you would be devoured by it. No one who encountered it survived intact. All were eaten down to their bare bones. This matter was truly terrifying. There were even rumors that the Crimson Tiger was the transformed Prime Minister. After his death, the Prime Minister's resentment soared to the heavens. So he had returned for revenge. The sun blazed high above. At this moment, Nguyen Ho stood before the carriage, looking at the horrifying scattered bones inside. The two surviving servants and the coachman from that day were all at the scene. "Nguyen Ho, tell me, what happened then?" The coachman, at that time, it was unknown what kind of monstrous creature this was, having devoured several people in succession. More importantly, this thing exclusively ate imperial descendants, who were close relatives of Nguyen Ho's current body. If it continued to eat like this, it was feared that soon all descendants of the Nguyen family would be devoured. Eventually, it would come for Nguyen Ho himself. Celestial Maiden Palace. The Celestial Maiden Palace was not yet completed, but the mural had already been moved and placed in the main hall. However, completing the temple was naturally not so simple. Next, a palace master and a ritual master had to be selected, and a sacrificial ceremony had to be held. Only then would the deity and the spiritual realm in this painting be considered integrated into this Celestial Maiden Palace in the Western capital. At the same time, it would also be considered linked to Nguyen Ho and the Great Shang dynasty. Nguyen Ho stood beneath the mural, holding a candlestick, just like that night, when the figures in the painting began to move. The leading celestial maiden extended her hand towards Nguyen Ho. Nguyen Ho took her hand and was pulled into the painting. At this moment, Nguyen Ho held the hand of celestial maiden Miaoshang, led by her as she flew upwards, soaring through the sky, fluttering in the wind, as if in a dream, yet awake, feeling ethereal. Finally, the celestial maiden led him to sit down in a magnificent jade structure, seating him behind a jade table on a high platform. "Nguyen Ho, celestial maiden, I appreciate your kindness. But I have come today regarding an important matter. The celestial maiden already knew Nguyen Ho's intentions. Is it about the recent events in the capital city? Nguyen Ho. Indeed. I wish to know what exactly that thing is. This thing was invisible to ordinary people. Only when it called your name and you answered could you see it. And if you answered it, you would be ensnared by its spell technique, with death as the only outcome. Therefore, there was fundamentally no way to capture it. Furthermore, Nguyen Ho felt that with every person it consumed, it undoubtedly grew stronger. If this situation continued, by the time he himself encountered it, he feared he would hardly have an advantage. Thus, the urgent task was to clearly understand what this thing truly was. Celestial Maiden Miaoshang, has Your Majesty ever heard of the Bai Min Kingdom and the Huan Tu Kingdom? Nguyen Ho thought for a moment, but couldn't quite recall. I seem to have heard of them. Celestial Maiden Miaoshang said again. What about the Chuan Shang Kingdom? Nguyen Ho remembered. Is it the foreign tribe recorded in the classic of mountains and seas, where people have a large hole in their chest, through which a bamboo pole can be passed to carry them? Legend had it that these people were the Tongchi clan from ancient times. Because Emperor Yu exterminated the Tongchi clan, this tribe, ashamed, pierced their own chests, thus forming this nation. Celestial Maiden Miaoshang nodded. Your Majesty is indeed erudite. In ancient times, the 9 provinces had all sorts of legends about strange people and peculiar nations. Does Your Majesty know why they are no longer seen today? Nguyen Ho looked towards this wondrous realm. Could it be that the nations recorded in the classic of mountains and seas from ancient times are like this secret grotto heaven of the Celestial Maiden? Not existing in the mortal world, but in another realm. A smile touched the corners of Celestial Maiden Miaoshang's lips. Your Majesty is truly insightful. It is indeed so. In ancient times, there was no Buddhism or Taoism, nor was there an underworld or reincarnation. But those ancient ancestors worshipped the gods of heaven and earth, using the collective will of sentient beings and primal shamanistic arts to create various mountain and sea wonderlands. After death, they transformed into beings existing within those wonderlands. And different tribes, different ancient nations, created different mountain and sea wonderlands. It's just that as time passed, the ancient tribes and ancient nations all disappeared, and these mountain and sea wonderlands were buried along with them. Nguyen Ho understood what Celestial Maiden Miaoshang was saying but was still unclear about the deeper meaning. Nguyen Ho, could it be that thing is related to these ancient tribes and ancestors? Celestial Maiden Miaoshang, not only that thing, but Your Majesty and the great Shang dynasty are also related to these ancient tribes and ancestors. And that ghost deity in the underworld merely borrowed the karmic destiny and special bloodline on Nguyen Han to recreate this ancient entity. Nguyen Ho remained silent, quietly listening to Celestial Maiden Miaoshang's narration. Celestial Maiden Miaoshang looked at Nguyen Ho and said softly, quote, in ancient times, there was the Jai Ren kingdom. It is said they were descendants of Gao Yao. The people of this country could transform people into tigers. They favored wearing purple sackcloth and walking barefoot. It is rumored that the Jai Ren could see through the good and evil in people. And they liked to consume the flesh and blood of the wicked. Pointing at a person and calling their name. If that person responded, their flesh would be eaten. Kak Ban Dang Nghe Trian Demon Emperor Tai Feel Good Cultivation Audio Channel Chapter Bon Nguyen Ho sat within the dreamlike sacred grotto, listening as the Celestial Maiden, once a deity of old, recounted strange tales of the 9 provinces, the people of high antiquity and the mystical realms of mountains and seas. Though they have passed away and cannot be encountered again, their ancestral bloodline continues to this day. The descendants of the Tri-Nyan nation established the state of Nguyen during the Shang dynasty, subsequently adopting Nguyen as their surname. Your Majesty's imperial lineage of Dai Tin originates from there. After Du Hong, the Celestial Maiden, finished speaking, she then recounted earlier events. Previously, when Your Majesty transformed into a tiger deity and devoured that ghost general, I already knew of Your Majesty's origins. Nguyen Ho. So then, after Nguyen Han died, Those malevolent spirits and gods used Nguyen Ho's corpse as a basis to create this ancient Trinyan? Du Hong Celestial Maiden. Those malevolent spirits and gods do not understand the ancient Man Hoang shamanistic arts. They likely employed some contemporary magical techniques. But the result is quite similar. That thing. It is indeed a Trinyan. Nguyen Ho was puzzled. This thing. Is it ultimately human or ghost? Real or illusory? If it's a ghostly creature, how can something illusory truly devour human flesh? Nguyen Ho had previously encountered ghost soldiers. Such beings also needed to attach themselves to human bodies. The armor they wore and the sabers they wielded were all manifested through illusion magic. Using illusion to kill, even if it resulted in death, would leave no wounds on the victim's body. Yet this ancient Man Hoang Trinyan could actually devour people down to their very bones. Truly terrifying. Du Hong Celestial Maiden. It is a ghost. Yet not entirely a ghost. Someone took Nguyen Ho's corpse and, using ghost Dao sorcery, created a being that is half ghost, half corpse. This being possesses the supernatural abilities of the ancient Trinyan and can also directly interfere in the mortal realm. Moreover, the Nguyen lineage carries the Trinyan bloodline. The more it devours, the more supernatural abilities of the ancient Trinyan nation it can inherit. And the more formidable it will become. Precisely because it belongs to the Nguyen lineage. Others of the Nguyen lineage will find it even harder to resist its Trinyan supernatural abilities when confronting it. If we wait until it has devoured the entire Nguyen bloodline, I fear even your majesty will not be able to stop it then. Nguyen Ho. Then how can its demonic sorcery and those Trinyan supernatural abilities be broken? Truthfully, after learning the Trinyan's origins and characteristics, Nguyen Ho had already thought of a few methods. These kinds of magical arts or supernatural abilities could sometimes be broken merely by exposing them. Once their nature was revealed, the magic would be dispelled. However, since an expert had revealed crucial information, it was still best to hear her opinion first. Du Hong Celestial Maiden. The Trinyan's feet, though resembling a normal person's, lack heels. Careful observation will reveal this. If your majesty can find its footprints, I have a peculiar incense called Trong Quang An Lu Naim Hong. The secret formula for this incense originates from the Boi Hun nation in the outer realms, which I chanced upon. Burning it over the Trinyan's footprint will cause all its subsequent footprints to appear. Your majesty can use this method to find its hiding place. Nguyen Ho. Then I thank you. Celestial Maiden. Du Hong Celestial Maiden admonished him. Even if you find the Trinyan's whereabouts, your majesty must be extremely cautious. That Trinyan is exceedingly fierce, possesses ancient esoteric supernatural arts, and runs as fast as a swift steed. A slight misstep will allow it to escape. It also has the support of malevolent gods from the underworld. Capturing it again later will be 100 times more difficult. At that point, it could be said to be an immense disaster. When Nguyen Ho left the mural, he held an additional small censer in his hand. As for how to deal with that Trinyan next, Nguyen Ho already had a plan. As long as he could see or find this Trinyan, and given that it had a true physical form, dealing with it would be a simple matter. Dusk was falling. Captain Chu Ji-ko of the newly established pursuit office was leading a group of men, wearing waist sabers, crawling low on the ground, searching for something. The highest-ranking official in the pursuit office was only a captain, which sounded like a low rank. But the pursuit office was under the direct jurisdiction of the Son of Heaven. Answering to no one else, Captain Chu Ji County had his rear end stuck up, looking rather undignified, yet no one around dared to laugh. After a long while, there were finally results. Chu Ji County stood up and walked to a spot at the foot of a wall, which was already surrounded by 7 or 8 men. As soon as Chu Ji County arrived, everyone immediately made way. Chu Ji County looked at the faint tracks at the foot of the wall, which were somewhat hard to discern, then glanced at a soldier skilled in tracking beside him. Is this confirmed? Confirmed. After confirmation, Chu Ji County immediately went to a carriage, respectfully knelt in salute, his posture prostrate. "Your Majesty, we've found it." Nguyen Ho said nothing, but a palace maid dressed in men's attire beside the carriage stepped forward and handed him a small censer. Chu Ji County carefully received it, not even daring to glance at the palace maid. He first retreated slowly, then turned and quickly departed. He opened the censer, lit the incense stick inside, and held it to fumigate the footprint on the ground. Then, something miraculous happened. It's really appeared. "Quick, follow it. Over there, under the night sky, glowing footprints could be seen, one after another, stretching into the distance, as if sprinkled with phosphorescent powder." Looking closely at those glowing footprints, each showed only the front half of a foot, without a heel, exactly as if something was mimicking a person walking on tiptoe. Once a single footprint was found, the smoke from this peculiar incense would trace the trail, continuously drifting forward, coiling around each subsequent footprint until the incense smoke completely dissipated. Chu Ji County carried the censer, leading a team of men, and strode quickly in pursuit. They sped along, crossed a bridge, and rounded a grove of weeping willows at the foot of the bridge. The sky grew darker and darker. Finally, an ancient tower appeared before them. By now, it was almost completely dark. There wasn't a single light around. The tower loomed gloomily before them. Tall and imposing, it exuded an immense, oppressive feeling, like the Ghost Gate Pass itself. Chu Ji County looked closely at the footprints again. They led directly into that tower. This was the final destination. The surrounding pursuit office soldiers were somewhat excited. This was the first time they had been entrusted with a task by the Son of Heaven. If they completed it well, they would surely gain the Son of Heaven's notice. However, Chu Ji County stopped the men and said in a low, stern voice, "Do not act rashly. If we alert the creature and it escapes, it will ruin the important matter, and His Majesty will not forgive you or me." Chu Ji County ordered his men to withdraw a little, keeping a tight watch on the place, while he himself returned to report. In the carriage, Nguyen Ho silently listened to Chu Ji Ko's report, seeing that the Tri Nyan's trail had indeed been found. "Your Majesty, the location has been confirmed. It's at the tower gate in the West Market. That creature is definitely hiding inside." At this moment, Nguyen Ho finally spoke. "Summon General Uat Tri. Immediately surround the West Market tower gate." A eunuch on the other side of the carriage took a command token, bowed, and departed. This was the order to dispatch the imperial guards to surround and kill the Tri Nyan. After the previous incident with the ghost soldiers, Nguyen Ho had come to firmly believe one thing. No matter how formidable a demon, monster, or ghost you were, as long as you manifested a physical form, you could not withstand the siege of a massive army. Chapter Nam night had completely fallen, and just then, a dark cloud, appearing from nowhere, obscured the crescent moon. It could be said that one couldn't see their own hand in front of their face. At times like these, evil creatures would often emerge to devour human flesh. At this very moment, outside the West Market tower gate, a dense crowd had gathered. Shoulder to shoulder, soft clinking sounds could be heard. Bows and crossbows were drawn. Held tightly in hand, Nguyen Ho stood at a distance, beside a weeping willow by the bridge, gazing at the silent tower gate in the distance, then raised his head to look at the sky. Logically speaking, the sky tonight seemed unsuitable for making a move, but having come this far, retreat was, of course, not an option. Furthermore, this matter was better dealt with sooner rather than later. Who knew how many more Nguyen clansmen the Tri Nyan would devour by morning? Or how much its dark sorcery might increase? More importantly, it was to prevent the forces and the mastermind behind that Tri Nyan from recovering. To strike them with a sudden blow, leaving them no time to react. Uat Tri Sung Vu glanced at the emperor. Seeing him nod slightly, Uat Tri Sung Vu immediately clasped his hands and signaled towards the area below the tower gate. "Advance." The imperial guards lying in ambush on all sides heard the command and immediately charged forward. In front of the tower gate, 2 rows of racks were set up, bare and empty. Normally, During grand openings, these racks would be hung full of large lanterns, each 2 thuok high, arranged in 5 or 6 tiers, illuminating the entire area at night. Now, soldiers who had prepared in advance climbed the racks, quickly hanging lanterns on the West Market Tower gate and lighting them one by one. Groups of men also raised torches high, their flames instantly dispelling the darkness, brightly illuminating the surroundings. Such a great commotion also awakened those who hid by day and emerged by night, concealed within the West Market Tower gate. Quick, wake up, there's movement below, there are people, so many people. Who is it? This is bad. It's the Imperial Guard. Chaos erupted within the tower gate. Those below could hear the sounds of people talking above. Upon seeing that they were surrounded below by armored warriors, these individuals were instantly terrified out of their wits, overcome with panic, scattering like a disturbed beehive. The Imperial Guards below also saw the figures on the tower and, without a word, immediately loosed arrows upwards. 2 of them, hidden on the tower gate and looking down, were instantly shot dead. One let out a terrible scream, the other didn't even have time to cry out. One rushed out from within the tower gate. Seeing the dark mass of people outside, he still attempted to chant an incantation, but just as this person stamped his foot, before the incantation was finished, he was pierced and killed by a spear. Another, frantically dodging arrows, leapt from the tower gate, breaking his leg in the fall. Then, amidst his wretched cries, he was subdued by the Imperial Guards with sabers and spears, captured alive, and dragged away. Several soldiers quickly dragged away the corpses and escorted the prisoner back, disappearing into the military formation. The formation parted to create a small passage, then immediately closed ranks, maintaining its posture, aimed directly at the tower gate. At this moment, the man-eating evil creature on the tower gate finally awakened. Above, the sky was pitch black with clouds. Below, the crimson torchlight flickered, following an unearthly, inhuman howl. A fierce gust of wind arose, and with it, a shadow invisible to the naked eye leapt down from the tower gate. Kill! What is that? I can't see anything. The evil creature finally charged out, rampaging wildly, like a tiger or leopard pouncing into the crowd, instantly causing men and horses to fall. Although the Imperial Guards were prepared, facing the invisible monster, they were still terrified, breaking out in a cold sweat, utterly bewildered. Even vengeful ghosts could be seen. The Imperial Guards were not unfamiliar with such apparitions. The unseen was the most terrifying. The greatest fear stemmed from the unknown, from the terrors one conjured in one's own mind. It's here. Quick, stop it, corner it, don't let it escape. The crowd wildly swung their sabers and spears into the air. No one could see the tri-neon. The situation was extremely perilous. If casualties continued to mount like this, it was feared the soldiers' courage would wane, and this evil creature would seize the opportunity to break through the encirclement, making its capture exceedingly difficult. However, Nguyen Ho had already made preparations. Seeing the evil creature had struck, Uat Tri Sung Vu immediately shouted to those behind him, "Bring it out!" From behind the military formation, a group of men rushed out, carrying large baskets filled with powder, and hurled it towards the area where the invisible evil creature was rampaging. The powder landed on it, completely revealing its form. This time, the soldiers finally saw clearly what it was. The creature had a head resembling a tiger's, but its body was much smaller. It crawled low to the ground, bumping into things left and right. The soldiers aimed directly at it. First, a volley of arrows from bows and crossbows flew out in unison, each one embedding itself in the evil creature. Roar! After letting out a wretched cry, it finally dared not charge forward anymore. It retreated, knocking over the racks on the tower gate. Lanterns scattered, and the racks instantly caught fire, the flames then spreading to its body. A great fire blazed fiercely, burning the racks and also incinerating the purple robe on the evil creature, scorching it until it whimpered incessantly. At this moment, another change occurred in the sky. Rumble, rumble, The pitch-black sky finally could bear it no longer and unleashed a downpour, extinguishing the flames on the evil creature and even washing away the powder on its body. This time, the evil creature not only escaped a fatal predicament but might even seize this chance to flee. Nguyen Ho looked up at the sky, his brows furrowing slightly, but Nguyen Ho still had preparations. Before the evil creature could recover its senses, a group of men rushed out from among the soldiers. Carrying nets, they cast fishing nets, layer upon layer, enveloping the evil creature's body. It's in the net. Hold tight. Hold tight. Another layer. Don't let it break free. Layer after layer of fishing nets tightened around its body, no matter how great its strength or how bizarre its mystical powers. It could not employ them now. Over a dozen soldiers pulled the nets taut, pinning down the evil creature. Rows of soldiers charged forward, thrusting spears into its body. The more it was stabbed, the fiercer the evil creature became, and the more violently it struggled. Its immense strength actually pulled the group of men off balance. At this moment, Nguyen Ho finally stepped forward. This time, Nguyen Ho did not carry the Son of Heaven's sword. He wore armor and carried a long saber. As he advanced, he could hear the Tri Nyan panting heavily, like a wild beast. When Nguyen Ho drew near, the Tri Nyan seemed to catch his scent. It opened its mouth and shouted loudly, speaking in a human voice. Nguyen Ho, you are there. There. Its voice was filled with resentment, fury, and unwillingness to accept its fate. It blamed Nguyen Ho entirely for its current predicament. Nguyen Ho advanced, and heard this Tri Nyan scream. Everything is ruined. It's all your fault. All your fault. My 300-year foundation of Dai Tin will be lost at the hands of an incompetent brat like you. My Nguyen clan, it was predestined to fall at your hands. Ah, Nguyen Ho, you deserve to die. You deserve to die. Ah, the Tri Nyan looked around. In the darkness, human figures were everywhere. Flashes of light illuminated one figure after another, but it could not distinguish which one was truly Nguyen Ho. Nguyen Ho, come out here for me. Come out. Don't you dare face me? You, this foreordained king of a lost kingdom. Are you scared? Are you scared? The Tri Nyan's voice was like thunder, even drowning out the actual thunder in the sky. My Dai Tin is about to perish. It would be better if I devoured all of you, so you perish at my hands. Come out. Let me devour you. Devour you. Kak Ban Dang Nghe Trian Demon Emperor Thai Feel Good Cultivation Audio Channel Chapter Sao. The predecessor of the Jai Ren was Prime Minister Nguyen Han. And Nguyen Han, this Prime Minister, had always looked down upon the Son of Heaven. Nguyen Ho, who was the predecessor of this current body. He felt that Nguyen Ho was merely an incompetent child, and that the entire court, from top to bottom, along with the Da Sheng dynasty's foundation, was propped up solely by him. He was the jade pillar supporting the heavens, the sturdy backbone of the nation. Only he could reverse a dire situation, support the teetering edifice, assist the state, and turn the tide of heaven and earth. He felt his talents towered above the heavens, convinced that Nguyen Ho, this mere child, would lead the nation to ruin if he did not heed his counsel. Afterward, he constantly pondered how to kill Nguyen Ho, to seize the imperial throne from his grasp. However, Nguyen Han never expected that Nguyen Ho would suddenly seem as if possessed by a deity, turning the tables in just a few days and seizing control of the capital. Descending into the underworld, Nguyen Han found this outcome even harder to accept. He thus thought that without him, the Da Sheng dynasty would surely perish. If that was the case, then he would devour the entire Nguyen imperial clan, including that Son of Heaven. Nguyen Ho, let Da Sheng ultimately perish at his hands. This was the only outcome he could accept. At this very moment, his sky-high fury and resentment were aimed squarely at Nguyen Ho, roaring that today, all mistakes were your fault. You, the prime culprit. Nguyen Ho, come out. Nguyen Ho still did not respond. Amidst the heavy rain and lightning, he approached step by step. Let's just say you are capable. Nguyen Ho took a spear from Yuchi Chongwu, who stood beside him, and thrust it straight into its tiger head, ending this noisy creature. It could be considered ending its life. Though it had been dead for a long time already, this could only be seen as the lingering resentment of this individual. It was just that after this malevolent entity perished, Nguyen Ho heard another tiger's roar. Nguyen Ho was stunned, thinking that this thing wasn't completely dead yet. As a result, he saw the tiger god rush out from within his body. This being, originally refined from a demonic creature and a corpse, didn't need to wait for its ghostly soul to form after death. At this moment, it being nighttime, the tiger god directly took action. The tiger god pounced on the tiger-headed human silhouette that flew out from the Jai Ren's body. Then chewed it voraciously until it was clean. Looking at the opponent's Jai Ren, then at the tiger god that had just emerged from his own body, Nguyen Ho thought to himself, could it be that this tiger of his truly had some connection to the Jai Ren nation of ancient times? However, having this veneer of the Jai Ren nation was, conversely, a good thing for Nguyen Ho. At least the transformations on his body, as well as his origins resembling an otherworldly celestial demon, now had a plausible explanation. Indeed, specialized matters required specialized people. The celestial maiden not only helped Nguyen Ho resolve the immediate major trouble but even fundamentally resolved another significant problem. Very quickly, the tiger god completely devoured the tiger-headed human phantom. The remains on the ground finally lost their mythical color and power, fully revealing their true form before everyone's eyes. Even the naked eyes of mortals could see it. Under the flashing light of lightning, the soldiers all widened their eyes, staring at the corpse on the ground. Look quickly. What on earth is this thing? It truly is an evil demon. In the rain, a grotesque creature pieced together from a human corpse and a tiger's skull appeared. The tiger head was ferocious and malevolent, while the human body was charred black all over. But upon closer inspection, it was discovered that the charred flesh and skin of this person were actually beginning to regenerate. And even the junction between the tiger head and the neck was starting to grow flesh and skin. It seemed as if these two things, originally belonging to two different species, were truly about to merge into one entity. The purple robe originally draped over the tiger-headed, human-bodied monster was also burned beyond recognition, clinging tightly to the body. And at this very moment, the tiger god finally finished digesting the Jai Ren's soul, spitting out a round ball of light that merged into Nguyen Ho's body. And it itself followed suit, merging in as well, just as Nguyen Ho had predicted. This time it wasn't the Tran Fach, but the Tran Soul technique. Carrying the power of a demonic god, Tran Soul, nourishing form with form. As soon as Nguyen Ho fused with that ball of light, segments of memories appeared in his mind. Most of those memories took place in this West Market Gate Tower. Several days ago, someone had secretly occupied this West Market Gate Tower and then began to set things up. Here, they performed evil witchcraft, recreating the Jai Ren of the ancient savage desolate era. Then, this Jai Ren began to devour people. The more it ate, the more its form truly began to deviate from that of ordinary humans and creatures, strongly suggesting it was about to summon a fierce entity from the ancient savage desolate era into the human world. If it had been left for a few more days, Nguyen Ho feared he would truly have had to face an ancient savage desolate Yi Zhang, different species, abomination. But Nguyen Ho not only noticed the transformation of the Jai Ren but also when these people used demonic witchcraft to refine the Jai Ren. This Jai Ren also used some method to pass between the realms of yin and yang. In that scene, Nguyen Ho vaguely saw the West Market Gate Tower distort and warp. And behind it, a path leading to the underworld appeared. Countless ghouls and specters appeared on that ghost path in the netherworld, uttering whispers and discussions, or else mad laughter and sorrowful cries. The vision ended. Nguyen Ho took 2 steps forward, looking past the gate tower to what lay behind. It was just an ordinary street intersection, completely different from what he had seen in the vision. Nguyen Ho was not surprised. He knew what he had just seen. Ghost Gate Pass. He never expected that within this bustling West capital, right before the noisy West Market Gate, there was actually a path leading to the underworld. just like the entrance to the spirit realm in the mural, which was the mural itself. This netherworld divine realm of Lord Ma also similarly had an entrance connecting to the human world. Only that ordinary people usually couldn't see it, nor did they know how to open it. At first, Nguyen Ho didn't understand why Nguyen Han would choose such a place to hide. The West Market Gate Tower could hardly be considered a good hiding spot. At this moment, he understood the reason. Nguyen Ho appeared calm and composed, but his mind was already calculating. He thought, that ghost general who previously found the entrance to the wondrous music land in the mural wasn't there to offer New Year's greetings, but to seize that wondrous music land. Returning to the palace late at night. Outside, thunder still rumbled and rain poured down, but Nguyen Ho felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted. He didn't feel stifled at all, on the contrary. His spirits were refreshed. This heavy rain seemed to have washed away all the frustrations in his heart. Having eliminated Nguyen Han, Nguyen Ho considered a major threat removed, and he could now calmly arrange many matters in the court. As for the unexpected discovery of the Ghost Gate Pass, Nguyen Ho also had some ideas on how to deal with this Lord Ma. That Lord Ma probably never expected that he was a demon capable of seizing souls and had discovered how to open the Ghost Gate Pass. Your Majesty, quick, attend to His Majesty's change of clothes. Your Majesty, the ginger soup has been brought. Nguyen Ho changed into a set of casual clothes and drank the ginger soup. His mind on the trans-soul technique he had just acquired. Nourishing form with form. The name itself suggested it was about eating something to supplement something. But it wasn't that one could eat just anything. There had to be a specific menu. This was also an ancient technique originating from the Jai Ren nation. It was just that Nguyen Han ultimately couldn't perfect himself. So this divine ability and magical technique were incomplete. At the same time, Nguyen Ho wouldn't eat just anything either. How should this be implemented? Then Nguyen Ho thought of the celestial maiden Miao Shang. It was best to ask her about this kind of matter. Coincidentally, that celestial maiden palace was also about to truly descend upon the West capital. Chapter Bay. Bang 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 bang. It was the sound of the wooden fish drum, signaling the third watch, the hour of the tiger. By this early hour, Nguyen Ho had already departed the imperial city in his imperial carriage. Arriving at the foot of the celestial maiden palace, below the imperial city, penetrating the layers of mist and the foundations nearly a jaw high, one could discern the bronze bells on the 9-tiered eaves of the celestial maiden palace high above, swaying and their chimes echoing. On the grand avenue outside the imperial city, at this very moment, a solemn grand ceremony was taking place. The crowd of onlookers was dense, all kowtowing towards the celestial maiden palace, the son of heaven's imperial carriage, and the divine statue. On the path, purified by sprinkled water, 300 young maidens holding white purification vases knelt in 2 rows along the spirit way. Some were pruning flowers, others arranging willow branches and vines. Quote, welcoming the Miao Shang celestial maiden, Nguyen Ho leaned on the railing of the 9 dragons holding Pearl's carriage. Observing the devotees prostrating themselves on both sides of the spirit way, their foreheads pressed against the green bricks. These people didn't necessarily truly believe in the celestial maiden, but believing in anyone was still believing. And a kowtow cost nothing. A eunuch, holding a ritual book made of gold-rimmed Nanmu wood, bowed and reminded him, Your Majesty, the auspicious hour has arrived. Nguyen Ho nodded slightly. Begin. Thereafter, those beside him arranged everything. 81 strongmen, lifting the statue of the celestial maiden, stepped forward in rhythm, advancing towards the main hall of the celestial maiden palace. A thin silk veil covered the celestial maiden's statue, fluttering in the wind like the sleeves of a celestial being. The ceremony proceeded gradually, and soon it was the precise hour of C. Dong 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 dong. The sound of bells resonated throughout the city. A total of 99 chimes. A young maiden stepped forward to pull away the silk veil covering the divine statue, until the final layer of silk slid off the statue's face. The early morning sun shone down. That light pierced through a lotus-shaped window at the apex of the hall, casting a golden beam onto the center of the divine statue's brow. The celestial maiden returns to her place. All deities respectfully welcome her. An official in crimson robes loudly proclaimed the order, as if he had bridged the barrier between the realms of yin and yang. In the main hall, several murals suddenly glowed, and the silk hangings high above billowed as if stirred by an unseen wind. Nguyen Ho looked towards the divine statue. The phoenix-headed Kongho held by the celestial maiden suddenly resonated, and the 12 strings of white jade beads on her divine form clinked together, producing clear, crisp sounds. He, we finally have a place of our own. Thank you, Your Majesty. From some corner, a woman's soft laughter drifted, ethereal and magical, like a Brahma sound echoing from the Pure Land. Nguyen Ho looked towards the murals in the hall, feeling as if the image of each Aspara and celestial maiden within was looking at him. Night fell. Nguyen Ho, having bathed and fasted, sat cross-legged in a white robe within the celestial maiden palace, as if in seated meditation, cultivating the Tao. The entire celestial maiden palace, inside and out, was brightly lit. Sitting in the main hall, one could clearly hear the young boys and girls seated cross-legged outside the hall chanting the Miao Shang Celestial Maiden Universal Salvation True Scripture. Om Rala Mani Dara, Sat Da Keen Kia Ladin Mandat. Quote. Following that sound, a strange phenomenon also occurred within the main hall. Nguyen Ho saw mist rise from all directions, and layers of rosy clouds from the sky and the murals flowed outwards. It was as if this mural had completely become real, merging into the mortal world. Each peerlessly beautiful celestial maiden in the painting first began to move, then detached from the mural, lightly flying into the main hall. The celestial maiden's jade feet were untouched by worldly dust. They all floated in midair. With their appearance, a strange fragrance also permeated the celestial maiden palace. Looking up, the sky was filled with rainbow-hued garments swirling amidst clouds and mist. A riot of colors. Each celestial maiden wore a long, thin gauze skirt that neither concealed the surging waves of their figures nor hid the alluring curves tracing up their thighs. The expressions and demeanors of the celestial maidens were all different. Some were bold, some shy, some were passionate as fire, others as proud and cold as ice. And Nguyen Ho sat cross-legged in the main hall, like an old monk in deep meditation. Your Majesty, please follow me. Then, each celestial maiden descended beside Nguyen Ho. In front, a celestial maiden in white extended a slender, fair hand to take his right hand, leading him to fly upwards. To his left, a celestial maiden in purple embraced him, lifting his arm, her breasts pressing against him. Behind him, though Nguyen Ho couldn't see, he felt waves of silken robes and jade belts brush against his body, accompanied by faint sounds of breathing. It was as if someone was pressed close behind him, whispering, then quickly moving away. Just like that, Nguyen Ho flew into the wondrous land of music depicted in the mural. Within the immortal palace, Nguyen Ho once again saw her, who looked like a celestial fairy, yet whose facial adornments carried a Western region's flavor, the Miao Shang Celestial Maiden. Nguyen Ho seemed captivated by her beauty and asked her a question. Are you now of Buddhist nature? Or Taoist? She resembled a Buddhist celestial maiden, yet wore a Taoist headdress, and the floral marking between her eyebrows had the style of a Central Plains lady. Even amidst a crowd of stunning celestial maidens, she still stood out like a crane among chickens. Nguyen Ho asked this, also inquiring whether the Miao Shang Celestial Maiden intended to align with Buddhism or had plans to join Taoism in the future. Miao Shang Celestial Maiden looked at Nguyen Ho and replied, "That depends on whether your Majesty wishes me to be Buddhist or Taoist." Nguyen Ho passed through layers of silk curtains and only then noticed the surrounding scenery. Indeed, as Miao Shang Celestial Maiden had said, this wondrous land of music of hers was somewhat different from when Nguyen Ho first visited. The other jade pavilions and palaces around were not much different. But this newly erected main palace bore a striking resemblance to the celestial maiden palace. The structure was not much different, but it was far more majestic and grand. And the decorations were extremely lavish. The silk curtains in this celestial maiden palace were all drawn. And moreover, the curtains here were 10 times thicker and 10 times more numerous. This made the palace here appear veiled everywhere, as if shrouded in clouds. In a sense, after this welcoming ceremony concluded and Miao Shang's celestial maiden took up residence, Nguyen Ho and she became completely bound together. Sharing glory, sharing humiliation. Nguyen Ho looked again into the depths. At the position of the mural in the celestial maiden palace, he saw that this place also had a mural. But its content was different. The mural in the mortal celestial maiden palace depicted the wondrous land of music. But the mural here depicted the imperial city and the western capital of the mortal world. Looking closely, one could even see the transformations of the imperial city and the western capital. With this celestial maiden palace, it was equivalent to the imperial city having an additional protective barrier. Ordinary demons, evils, ghosts, and monsters wishing to enter the palace to cause trouble would no longer find it so simple. Even the slightest major disturbance could be observed from here. Passing through layers of silk curtains, a high platform appeared ahead. Miao Shang helped Nguyen Ho to the main seat, which was the position of the divine statue in the celestial maiden palace. But here it had transformed into a high platform resembling a cloud bed. Looking down, the main hall below was also at least several dozen times larger than the celestial maiden palace in the mortal world. But the lowered silk curtains obscured the view, making it difficult to see clearly. Miao Shang, celestial maiden, your majesty. Please be seated. Nguyen Ho. Isn't this your divine dais? Miao Shang, celestial maiden. I have said before, your majesty is the true master of this wondrous land of music. Nguyen Ho. I am a worldly person. Can I also sit here? Miao Shang, celestial maiden. Your majesty is no ordinary mortal. As soon as Miao Shang, celestial maiden said this, Nguyen Ho immediately recalled the origins of this body of his. Then remembered the ancient Jai Ren nation and the supernatural power he had just acquired. Immediately, Nguyen Ho inquired about matters related to the Jai Ren, their supernatural powers, and especially whether there was such a power as using form to supplement form. After Miao Shang, celestial maiden listened, she indeed gave Nguyen Ho the answer he desired. How this supernatural power is specifically manifested, I am not clear. However, I know that only spiritual objects and some extraordinary items with significant origins can be used to use form to supplement form, producing unimaginable wonders, just like that Nguyen Han who transformed into a Jai Ren. What he consumed were all descendants of the ancient Jai Ren nation, otherwise, no matter how much he ate, it would have no effect. After hearing this, Nguyen Ho sank into thought. At this moment, Miao Shang, celestial maiden, interrupted him again. Quote, Your Majesty. Nguyen Ho turned his head and saw that she had removed the Taoist headdress from her head. A thick mane of silver hair cascaded down, its disheveled appearance carrying 3 parts allure and 7 parts divine solemnity. For some reason, the longer one gazed at that 7/10 divine solemnity, the more alluring it seemed. She opened her mouth and said, It is time to rest. The cloud bed-like divine dais hung high above, surrounded by gently fluttering, cloud-like silk curtains that obscured the scene within. Only faintly could one glimpse 2 youthful, vigorous bodies entwined, filled with a mystical rhythm, exuding a rich fragrance that could send one's soul into a frenzy. For Nguyen Ho, this was an unprecedented experience. This was a sensation similar to human experience, yet it transcended mere carnal pleasure. If one had to name this desire, it should be called a desire of the spirit and flesh. Nguyen Ho felt all his senses being continuously magnified, his eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. All perceptions became much clearer. Not only the external world, but also within his body. Gen Po elegant speech, Gen Po human form, Gen Po archery, Gen Po 100 battles saber technique, Gen Po. Soul and spirit essences flowed before his eyes. His consciousness relaxed, and a vast amount of memories were continuously magnified and integrated into his mind. Things that would normally take many days to master, requiring multiple attempts to fully integrate into the Gen Po. At this moment, they were rapidly grasped and mastered by Nguyen Ho. Nguyen Ho was immersed in it, feeling his body float among the clouds, as if enveloped by a soft ocean of carnal sensation. Ordinary carnal desire merely depleted one's energy, making one feel degenerate, but this spiritual cultivation, while satisfying desire, could also make Nguyen Ho stronger, giving him the feeling that he was also vigorously advancing. One part tilling, one part harvest. At this very moment, the degenerate desires of carnal nature, along with the rational pursuit of spiritual progress, were both satisfied, achieving a win-win situation. Nguyen Ho felt himself simultaneously debased and yet vigorously progressing. His physical form was intoxicated with desires so worldly they were almost unbearable. Yet his consciousness was so clear it seemed to ascend to the ninth heaven. Refined to the utmost, it was truly indescribably wonderful. Kak Ban Dang Nghe Trian Demon Emperor Thai Feel Good Cultivation Audio Channel Chapter Tam. The Xuanwu camp was located south of the city. Nguyen Ho was on patrol. The entire military camp was engaged in training. If Nguyen Ho's previous tasks involved replacing problematic generals, then later, it was about selecting talented officers. So now, the primary focus was on training soldiers. Training physical fitness, courage, understanding the commands of gongs and drums, practicing martial arts, camp layout, and so on. The Imperial Guard had also recently been divided into teams to launch attacks, targeting Prince Ma's mansion and the temples worshipping the path of hell around the western capital, leveling mountains and destroying temples, demolishing unorthodox shrines, and exterminating those sorcerers who pretended to be gods and spirits. Furthermore, Nguyen Ho had also recently recruited a considerable number of people, fully replenishing the ranks of the Imperial Guard. All were recruited from families with clean backgrounds and were currently undergoing training. The main training ground was this Xuanwu field, and Nguyen Ho was also there. He would occasionally pick up a saber or spear to perform a few moves, draw a longbow to practice his archery, or engage in mounted archery. The new recruits, being inexperienced, were often left in awe by Nguyen Ho's occasional displays of skill, as if they had witnessed a celestial being. Quote, "His Majesty possesses such martial arts skills? This is nothing. Previously, His Majesty was in the Phoenix Hoang Mountains and killed a demon with a single arrow. Then, atop the city gate tower, he struck down an enemy with a single shout, and later drew his bow to kill a treacherous general. However, looking at His Majesty's martial arts now, it seems he has improved even further." Meanwhile, Nguyen Ho also used the art of physiognomy to observe these men, trying to discover precious talents among them. However, today, not long into the training, Nguyen Ho suddenly felt his entire body devoid of strength. "Your Majesty, why have you stopped?" Nguyen Ho raised his hand. "I have other matters to attend to today. Remember to train diligently. I will have important tasks for you in the future." Nguyen Ho left the main camp and immediately mounted his horse. He immediately felt his entire body go weak, especially around his waist. Pushing his spiritual senses to their limit was certainly not without cost. It required the consumption of vital essence. Nguyen Ho mused that this was perhaps what was known as refining essence into qi. Refining qi into spirit. If he considered it this way, then this was truly cultivation. Training one's physique and strength was not something that yielded results in a short period. And besides training, innate talent also proved to be crucial. The upper limit seemed predetermined, no matter how one trained. It was very difficult to reach the desired heights. But recently, Nguyen Ho had found a method, reinforcing form with form. After returning, Nguyen Ho first met with the court officials, then summoned Zhu Jiako of the arrest warrant office for some inquiries. When night fell, Nguyen Ho bathed and changed his clothes. then sat in the quiet room in the rear hall. The grand hall was spacious. Instead of silk curtains, several scrolls of thick paper hung on all sides. When unrolled, they could block the wind, and their upper sections bore paintings, much like screens. Now, with these paper scrolls unfurled, the grand hall seemed to be lined with walls of mountain and sea landscape paintings, winding and twisting like a labyrinth. Nguyen Ho sat in the deepest part, like a deity in a palace of the ninth heaven. Outside, a middle-aged eunuch knelt behind the layers of painted paper, kowtowing towards the interior. "Your Majesty, the item has been brought." Nguyen Ho, "Bring it in." The eunuch slowly passed through the layers of paper, approached Nguyen Ho, and reverently held up a long box. Nguyen Ho opened it and took out a tall incense stick. The incense stick was thick and large, though its shape was rather unsightly. This item was refined according to a method taught by celestial maiden Miaoshang. Its main ingredient sourced from something previously obtained from the donkey head demon. It was dried using a secret technique, ground into powder, and combined with other materials to create this incense. Nguyen Ho could then use the method of consuming qi by swallowing incense to perform soul grasp, reinforcing form with form, thereby absorbing the power within it. At this moment, Nguyen Ho lit this large, potent incense stick. Instantly, a strong, rich fragrance wafted out, like a shattered silver flask. Hee-haw, hee-haw. Nguyen Ho even heard the braying of a donkey. Looking up, he saw the very demon he had encountered before materialize in the void. Its hind hooves were twice the size of its front ones, and it stood upright like a human, the smoke enveloping its body like clothing. The demon gradually solidified as if coming alive, then let out a strange shriek and actually tried to flee. At this moment, Nguyen Ho, who was sitting cross-legged, took a long, deep breath. A gust of wind swirled in the void. The dense smoke from the incense, which had condensed into a phantom, seemed to blot out the sky and cover the earth as it was drawn into Nguyen Ho's breath. Soul grasp, reinforcing form with form. But after inhaling that dense incense smoke, Nguyen Ho immediately sensed something was amiss. Just moments ago, merely smelling the incense, he had only perceived its intense richness, the fragrance even seeming a bit pungent. But upon inhaling it, this rich fragrance immediately transformed, producing a kind of seductive and intoxicating aroma. It caused one's thoughts to wander, making the mind as restless as an ape and the will as untamed as a wild horse. Nguyen Ho felt as if a mischievous ape, or an untamable horse, was rampaging wildly within his body. This thing, it was truly perverse and potent. At this moment, the true scripture of celestial maiden Miaoshang for universal salvation once again echoed in Nguyen Ho's ears. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." The fragrance, the calling of his name. Nguyen Ho had responded. Then, Nguyen Ho was once again led into the wondrous scene within that mural. Upon arriving there, that seductive and intoxicating fragrance still clung to Nguyen Ho. Refusing to dissipate, Nguyen Ho landed on the cloudbed, still pondering how he could use soul grasp, reinforcing form with form to strengthen himself. However, the rich fragrance relentlessly permeated his body, and the restless ape and wild horse within him grew increasingly difficult to control. In an instant, he showed signs of losing control. In the heavenly palace, white silk curtains draped down like clouds. Graceful and beautiful figures emerged from all directions, passing through these hanging clouds and floating onto the cloudbed. Nguyen Ho sat cross-legged on the cloudbed, resembling a holy monk ensnared by alluring spirits. He looked up, opening his eyes. "Who are these?" Celestial maiden Miaoshang said from the side. "This is the third-generation ruler of the former Western Liang Women's Kingdom. This is the 12th generation saintess of our former sect. This is a former princess of the Soul Goblet Kingdom. And this." Celestial maiden Miaoshang introduced the origins of each celestial maiden in this wondrous paradise. Apart from celestial maiden Miaoshang herself, who truly hailed from the heavens and earth, the others were the spirits of beautiful women who had died young in the western regions or even more distant lands. Nguyen Ho, Why are they here? Celestial Maiden Miao Shang, to help your majesty cultivate. With the fragrance continuously flooding his body, Nguyen Ho was already showing signs of losing control. Now, further stimulated, a roar like that of a dragon or a tiger erupted from within Nguyen Ho's body, accompanied by the frenzied braying of donkeys and neighing of horses. A terrifying silhouette manifested behind him. Nguyen Ho himself transformed, becoming as proud and fierce as a demon, and he embraced the figure before him. When it was over, Nguyen Ho lay on the cloudbed, shielded by layers of silk curtains. Looking at the celestial maiden with jade-like arms embracing him, he asked, Nguyen Ho, why use this method of consuming qi by swallowing incense? Isn't it supposed to be reinforcing form with form? Celestial Maiden Miao Shang, your majesty's physical foundation is not yet solid. If you were to use it directly and indiscriminately, it would be too potent, and you wouldn't be able to absorb it properly. Furthermore, your majesty's soul grasp technique is incomplete. I can only help find ways to perfect it for you. When Nguyen Ho opened his eyes, it was already the next day. As palace maids helped him change his clothes, Nguyen Ho looked at his reflection in the bronze mirror. Observing himself carefully, Nguyen Ho leaned closer to look, and found that he didn't seem to have changed significantly. Looking down, however, he discovered the change, centered around his waist. Strength now clearly radiated to his limbs. Every movement, whether lifting a hand or a foot, felt imbued with immense power. Nguyen Ho raised his hand and puffed out his chest. The contours of his muscles all over his body became clearly defined. Streamlined like water droplets, he resembled a fine steed in full gallop, or a hunting leopard pouncing on its prey. It possessed a striking aesthetic. Arriving at the Xuanwu camp's training field once more, Nguyen Ho tested his martial arts again that day. Swoosh! The stiff bow, which Nguyen Ho previously had to strain slightly to draw, he could now pull fully taut with strength to spare. The spirited steed, once somewhat difficult to control, now obeyed him docilely. Whichever way Nguyen Ho pulled the reins to direct it, it went without resistance. Drawing the bow and knocking an arrow while on horseback was no longer affected in the slightest. Even his saber techniques had become even more refined. Moreover, Nguyen Ho also casually picked up a long spear and a horse lance from the training ground and went through some moves. Though he lacked any particular finesse, the sheer force behind his movements was astonishing. The 16-foot horse lance whistled through the air in Nguyen Ho's hands, creating gusts of wind as he wielded it. Why is His Majesty so full of vigor and vitality today? Truly formidable. Excellent. Some felt deeply alarmed, but the vast majority of the ordinary Imperial Guard soldiers, witnessing this scene, only cheered and roared their approval. And this was only the beginning. In the period that followed, this transformation in Nguyen Ho became even more pronounced. Nguyen Ho's physique seemed to undergo a rejuvenation. Rapidly changing, his entire body appeared to experience another growth spurt, and his height even increased slightly. Standing shirtless in the military camp, even amidst a group of officers who rigorously trained their physiques daily, his body was as solid as steel, his imposing and robust form dazzling to behold. It was truly a complete metamorphosis, as if he had shed his old skin and flesh for new. This transformation only ceased after more than a month had passed. Chapter Chin. The Netherworld, the realm of shadows. Dust and sand swirled. 100 miles of wasteland. Wind howled down from the heavens, carrying the cries of myriad ghosts and the mortal world's sea of suffering. Streaks of lightning rent the sky, like famished demons from the mortal realm, roaring. Yet, such a place was considered relatively good. In the deeper recesses of the netherworld, it was pitch black, where nothing could be seen, and even the most malevolent demons and fierce gods dared not venture. Under the gloomy darkness, within the underworld temple, in the main hall, a deity was in a fit of rage. Beside him, an evil entity was whipping a group of ghost generals and minor underlings below, who let out series of wretched screams. The three-eyed, horse-faced deity on the divine platform was still not satisfied, roaring streams of reprimands at those below. It was just that the voice like that of a mud-eating demon, was incomprehensible to anyone but ghosts. For 100 years, I have never suffered such utter humiliation. Incense offerings have been cut off. Temples destroyed. In the past, where could we take refuge? This is all because of your incompetence. You can't even do one thing right. What's the use of keeping you? Don't you all usually boast about how capable you are? Now, who can kill that whelp for me? What emperor? The Dai Tin dynasty has perished. Its mandate of heaven exhausted. He's nothing but a wet behind the ears brat. Below, the fierce demons and malevolent gods shivered uncontrollably, not daring to utter a word. The army of donkey spirit soldiers had suffered a crushing defeat. Prime Minister Nguyen Ho and Tri Nhan, who was refined from bloodlines, had both perished, their souls scattered. It wasn't until the Celestial Maiden Palace was established that Nguyen Ho managed to compensate for that weakness. Now, the multitude of ghosts within 100 miles of the nearby netherworld, along with the fierce gods from all four directions, all felt that something was amiss. Without incense offerings and temples, in this netherworld within and without the western capital, it seemed it would soon no longer be their turn to rule. Today, when Lord Ma Wong reviewed his generals and dispatched deities, he discovered that some deities had not arrived. Furthermore, among the 3 armies of horses, mules, and donkeys under his command, some ghost generals had deserted, causing his fury to completely erupt. Useless trash. All of you are good for nothings. Keep beating them for me. Keep beating them. The whip lashed left and right with increasing force. The ghost generals and ghost underlings below kowtowed like pounding garlic, ceaselessly begging for mercy. This netherworld god controlled the ghost generals more severely than servants. It was truly like enslaving dogs and pigs. Below the platform, no ghost dared to resist, even though this horse-faced deity humiliated them thoroughly. In this netherworld, the prestige of a deity was greater than that of the Son of Heaven. Just then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. It was a woman appearing to be in her late 20s or early 30s. With a voluptuous figure, her long, narrow eyes held a hint of sinister charm. Her head was bowed in an expression of obedience, and she wore attire from the ancient Qin Han period. That attire had a very distinctive waistband, which further accentuated her already full figure, making it appear curvaceous, even somewhat exaggerated from a distance. Compared to the irascible, 3-eyed horse deity, she appeared much gentler and more docile. My king, that Nguyen Ho is deeply malevolent. I fear he is either the reincarnation of an ancient high official or an inheritor of what the Dai Tin dynasty bestowed. It seems the Dai Tin's fortune has not yet ended. Perhaps we should take a step back. Temporarily avoid his spearhead. We are immortal deities. Why must we contend for fleeting victories with those dragons and serpents of the mortal realm? Hearing these words, the deity on the divine platform grew even more furious. My foundation is here in the western capital. Where can I retreat to? 100 years of calculation and scheming, only to achieve today's power. Am I to discard it all overnight? Without this foundation, wouldn't I become a wandering, lonely ghost? How could I secure this divine seat? Command the ghosts and deities of these 100 miles? If I retreat, I fear I'd be worse off than even a wandering spirit in a grass shrine. Lord Ma Wong shot to his feet, his colossal figure casting a shadow that enveloped the entire grand hall. Lord Ma Wong waved his hand, signaling the others to withdraw, then fully revealed his thoughts to his wife. People often say, a phoenix that sheds its feathers is no better than a chicken. A tiger that descends to the plains is scorned by dogs. If I retreat now, without my foundation, unable to command these 100 miles of ghosts, deities, and spirit soldiers, I fear they will immediately turn on me. And just now, the great emperor of Fengdu has issued a decree, and the gods of the 6 realms have also sent down divine orders, requiring me to firmly hold this western capital netherworld, not to yield an inch. If I lose these 100 miles of the netherworld, I will be smitten until my soul flies and scatters. Thinking of this, Lord Ma Wong became even more enraged. Quote, if it were before, when my donkey army was alive, sweeping across the mortal realm, causing chaos in the world. My might shaking the universe, after death. Sweeping across 800 miles of the netherworld. Despising the heroic ghosts. How would these gods of the 6 realms dare to scorn me so? It's merely because they see I've suffered successive defeats. Then lost my foundation. And no longer have power. Only then did they find such an excuse to control me. Forcing me into a life or death struggle with that Nguyen Ho. So they can sit back and reap the fisherman's benefits. The more Lord Ma Wong thought, the more frustrated he became. Shouting to those below, "It seems I must personally take action. To wash away this humiliation. To let that whelp Nguyen Ho know just how many eyes Lord Ma Wong truly has." Lady Ma said in alarm, "Husband, do you intend to take advantage of the ghost gate opening wide to act in the mortal realm at night?" Lord Ma Wong nodded. "Indeed." Lady Ma hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "We are ghosts and gods of the netherworld. Going to the mortal realm, isn't that like striking a stone with an egg? If we fail, wouldn't we be courting our own doom? It would be better to lie low for now and wait for an opportune moment." Lord Ma Wong said, "Precisely because of that. The whelp Nguyen Ho will not anticipate it. I must strike first while his foundation is still unstable to gain the upper hand." Although the boundary between yin and yang was vast, this boundary was not unbreakable. There were times tacitly acknowledged by both the yin and yang realms when ghosts and gods could appear in the mortal world. And their power would also reach its peak. When the vast majority of mortals in this land believed that ghosts could appear and wreak havoc in the mortal world at will. Then ghosts and gods truly could appear. This was the law of the 2 realms. Yin and yang. Lord Ma Wong was prepared, intending to personally campaign in the mortal world. Lady Ma was terrified, tears streaming down like rain. "If your journey is unsuccessful, what will become of me?" Lord Ma Wong was full of confidence, only finding his wife's demeanor truly bothersome. "Don't talk nonsense. I have roamed between heaven and earth for several hundred years. My fame resounding through the 9 hells. Taking the life of that whelp Nguyen Ho is as easy as turning over my hand. Wait for my return. I think, not only becoming a ghost king, but in this netherworld, becoming a Ma emperor, is not impossible." Western capital. The sun blazed fiercely. Nguyen Ho had just visited a concubine in the rear palace who had recovered from a serious illness and was now passing by the foot of the imperial palace wall. Green vines beneath the imperial palace wall stretched high towards the windows of the palace above. Like people desperately trying to climb in. A group of palace maids and eunuchs passed by. The maids carried many items, while the eunuchs carried chests and baskets. Nguyen Ho saw them and asked the eunuch beside him, quote, "Go ask what they are doing." The eunuch immediately sent another eunuch to inquire. And soon Nguyen Ho received the report. "Your Majesty, the Qingming festival is approaching. The ghost gate will open wide. Those are items for warding off evil and suppressing malevolence. Willow branches for exorcism, mugwort leaves, and fragrant herbs. And also." After hearing this, Nguyen Ho blinked. "The ghost gate opens wide?" Ever since Nguyen Ho learned that the area of the West Market Gate Square was the entrance to the ghost gate, he had begun to scheme, only unsure when the time would be right. Perhaps the time has come. You have just finished listening to episode BA of the audiobook, Demon Emperor, at Feel Good Cultivation audio channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get the latest updates. Thank you so much.